Hello, welcome to the video, and today we're talking about the playing for two results concept. What is playing for two results mean in chess? What you do with playing for two results is that you want to minimize risks of losing, but you actually, if you make a mistake, you draw, and if your opponent makes a mistake, you win. You want to play games where you minimize your risks to lose, and let's say, if you have an equal position that you can draw, you play with no risks at all. You don't have that in mind that you're going to lose. There's pretty much no way to lose. You minimize the game. That way you play for two results. A draw or you win. You win because your opponent makes a mistake. If you make a mistake, it's a draw. That's the cool thing about playing for two results. And you know who plays this way all the time? Is Magnus Carlsen. A lot of people just only praise him for his endgame skill because he wins drawish looking positions. But he basically gets ignored every time. He plays for two results all the time, but it's ending up a draw. We don't talk about the draws, but we only talk about the ones that he actually squeezes out a win. Basically squeezing water out of a rock. So Magnus Carlsen does this all the time. Playing for two results is what he aims for every endgame. We talk about all the, let's say, miracle wins from drawish positions because always he has playing for two results games. We just ignore the two result games that he actually flops and draws. That is basically, in essence, what Magnus Carlsen does best is playing for two results. And we'll see a game of his after this one example of my game where I did the wrong way. I did not know this concept about playing for two results. So basically, the before stage are like you don't know what the playing for two results is. But then afterwards, I'll show you the game that he played against Levon Aronian, Title Seal, 2012. This is where he was able to beat Levon Aronian using that principle of two results and actually using it the right way mindset. So the wrong mindset will be showing you first that I played for, let's say I should have played for two results, but I just accepted a draw. When I had no risk to lose, I thought was figuring out, okay, this Russian FM, I never got a draw with him before. I always lost with him. I never got an offer draw for him for my entire life, but now he got me a draw offer, so I accepted it. But I got criticized all day. Why do you accept the draw? There's no risks. There's no way to lose. Why do you not play on? Why don't you play for two results? It's like, huh? What does that mean? But hopefully today at the end of the video, you know the concept of playing for two results and you don't make mistakes like I did. So I'll show you the game that I played. The game I played was this one. I was black at the game. And the game I played rook takes e1. Trading off a pair of rooks is really essential in this case. And he offered me a draw at this point. He said, I'll offer you a draw. Never in my life have ever been offered a draw by this Russian FM. And this is the first round in a very big tournament. And this is the first round I was paired against my, let's say, colleague that I played in my local club a lot of times. The most played person I ever played in Red chess, but I never got offered a draw by him. But this tournament, first round, I got offered a draw against him. So without hesitation, I accepted a draw. But then I was flooded with criticism with a bystander. It's like, why didn't you play on? There's no risk to lose. And the international master was saying that I can win this with 1 minute on the clock. And I was feeling so bad. People were thinking that I could play. I'm a Kramnik. I was just saying draws. Like, what's the point? What's the problem? What are you just like yelling at me about? I got an upset draw. It's like, no, you could have played on. You could have played for two results. And I was totally baffled what that meant. So I should not have, let's say, taken the draw. There's no risk of losing. I had all the chances to actually play for the win. And if I make a mistake, I draw. The same results. But I was thinking that, okay, I do draw, well-fought draw, and just rest for the next round's game and just play on. But no, I should have played on for the win and actually have a win against FM, this Russian FM. Boggles my mind now. But in the time, the pressure, the first round, I just took it without a question. So But let's see the Magnus Carlsen game he played against Levon Aronian in the Tata Seal 2012 game. This is a pure textbook example of how you play for 2 results and actually get a benefit from it. This is how you play for 2 results. Not like I did. I had a 2-result game, but I did not know the concept. And I played with ignorance. I just took a quick draw. I should not have done that. So this is the game. Magnus Carlsen is white in this game, and Aronian is black. So he played the English c4, e6. I play this one, e6 and move 1 against c4. Knight c3, d5, d4. It'll be a queen's gambit declined after bishop b7 transposition. And now takes in d5 with the pawns. Bishop f4, c6, trying to be solid. Queen c2, saying that you can't go bishop f5 with the queen there. But knight f6 happened. h3 to make sure that there's no bishop b4. Let's say business after knight f3. The Levon Aronian saying that I want to go bishop f5 attack your queen. But I think that maybe the dark squares around the king side will be weak a little bit. But let's see what the game went. So e3, bishop f5, queen e2, avoid the attack. So h5. And especially, the question is, do you castle now as white, or do we keep the king in the middle? So the concept I like to tell you about is the concept of not showing your address. What I mean by that is that don't show your king's address unless if you absolutely have to. What I mean by that, what is the address? What does it have to do with chess? What I mean by saying that is basically analogy. If you're showing your king's address, you know where he lives. Is the king side, queen side, or middle? If you establish your king's address, the permanent residence of this king, then you let your opponent know where to attack, where to launch pawns, what to launch pieces, where to attack. If you don't know where your king is going to be placed, like say reveal as your address, then you don't know where he's going to go. You attack everything in the king side, but the king suddenly goes king side castle, and all of the temples you invested in the king side are for naught. This is a really good concept about sometimes you don't want to show your address too quickly because, well, basically like a poker game, you're showing your hands to your opponents. You can't do that if you want to win the game. So in this game, Magnus Carlsen played bishop d3 instead of castling queenside because this will be really bad. So takes in d3, queen takes d3, knight bd7, knight ge2, a5, and now just getting space in the queen side. Now Magnus Carlsen and Levon Aronian showed their, let's say, their addresses, castle, king side, both of them. So they'll both establish that their kings are safer and safest on the king side. So why not? So this one, f3, Magnus Carlsen plays to go for e4 push with a pawn's help. So b5, e4 happens. They take the d4 twice with the pawns, knight c5, attacking the queen. So we can't take the knight. Magnus Carlsen knows better. The queen would be taken. So Magnus Carlsen instead, he did the mature thing, he played queen f3. Getting out of the way of the knight, and knight is now attacked for real. So Levon Aronian said, okay, I want a bishop, knight e6, attacking the bishop. Magnus Carlsen played bishop f3, defending the bishop and the pawn d4 an extra time. b4, attacking the knight, knight b1, developing it but make it safe because the knight e2 is stepping on the toes of the knight, so they can't go there. Rook knight d1 will be problematic for the rook to go to d2 and d1 and things like that. That's why knight b1 is chosen by Magnus Carlsen. So Levon Aronian said, okay, I want to go knight h5, possible this one, possible g5 pushes, possible f5 pushes, a lot of flexibility for Levon Aronian. And this is a concept I like to also talk to you about, alignment. There's alignment of the rook and the queen. Sometimes it'll be really annoying for this rook to be the same file as the queen. So sometimes tactics can occur. Knight d2 has happened, rook c8, rook d1. Alignment of the rook on d1 from, let's say, rook a d1, attacking the queen. So Levon Aronian says, okay, bishop h4. I want to have the scope of this dark squares. And Magnus Carlsen says, nope, just go back with that bishop. It's annoying looking. He goes bishop f6, knight c4, and defending that pawn because before it was attacked 3 times. Knight queen and the bishop were attacking the d4 pawn, saying, okay, I want to defend that pawn with a nice d4 move, and also attacking, putting pressure on this a5 pawn, which later was actually taken by Magnus Carlsen. So let's say what did black do? He played bishop g7. b3 to fix the pawns to the queen side. Levon Arena says, I want to get out of the alignment. It's queen e7. So queen g2, getting out of alignment himself, for the rook and f8, and now knight c7. So after this one, knight e5 has basically been taken, in the sense also taking the pressure on c6. So Levon Arena said, okay, rook e8, and saying that I want to take the pawn on e4, this one. So Levon Arena, instead of, it's basically following the rules of Bobby Fischer. Instead of being, let's say, defensive, if you're attacked by something, you gotta defend it. He has a mindset of that. If you have a counterattack, is better than, let's say, look for counterplay instead of being a turtle shell and defending against everything your opponent does. Be a dynamic, be attacking, be aggressive, look for initiative, be combative. That's matters, let's say, Bobby Fischer way to play chess. This Fischer chess will say, you counterattack. That's why rook e8 was played. So e5 to blunt the bishop and also to defend the pawn. And also adding another attacker of this pawn c6. So knight d5 was played. Bishop e2 was make sure that the bishop not taken by knight. Rook d8 from e8. Knight f4, trying to trap the knights. Queen a7, saying that I want to take your pawn d4, take knight, and a4, and also alignment of the king. So what could Magnus Carlsen do to save himself? Well, Magnus Carlsen said, I want to take a c6, attack the queen, and save the knight, and defend the pawn. So rook takes c6, knight takes e5, and now saying that, okay, Magnus Carlsen is goading him to take on d3, d4 rather, check, and bishop e3 will be a lovely home, or something like that. And this is a lot of things they can do. This bishop g4, there's actually a lot of options that white can do to just unravel against Loronian. So Loronian knows that this is not worth taking. He played instead rook c2. Rook's lovely in the second rank, and the a2 pawn is the gunner because so many attackers on that pawn, that'll be a dream for black now. So white did king h1 to get out of alignment. So that's Magnus Carlsen does respect the alignment, so I want to get out dodge as fast as possible. Bishop f8 makes it basically rerouting and also defending the b4 pawn, which is being attacked by two pieces. e6, a cool move, and now this is something like if they do f takes e6, then this is what Magnus Carlsen wants. He wants to weaken up the structure around the king, the black's king, and that'll be really easy pickings for Magnus Carlsen to tear off the black king and have a really reasonable position. So Levon Arena knows that is the plan for Magnus Carlsen for this, let's say, like Kasparov pawn sack. He knows that. He probably played Kasparov a lot of times to say that we can't do this. He played, said, queen a8. Alignment of the queen and the king again. He wants to go on alignment again. But taking a 7 check, king h8, knight f4, trying to take this pawn g6. But now trades this queens and rook d4, and he knows that Magnus Carlsen knows that this is going to be a blunder. This is one that's like allowing him to take this piece, and also Jesus' knight is to be like hanging. This is not acceptable. So that's why Magnus Carlsen played instead rook f2. Rook f2 defends and gets rid of the pin and defends the bishop, and now this is actually a threat. So rook d6, bishop c1. And then rook takes f2, check, discovery attack on the rook. So, how to navigate this position? It looks really bad for Magnus Carlsen, but Magnus Carlsen is a really plotting grandmaster, a world champion, really world-class player. He's trying to play for 2 results. Well, how do you play for 2 results? We're down a rook. We're down a whole rook. This is going to be down. We're down a whole rook. I'm just not going to listen to you anymore, Metal Eagle. You were down a rook. How do we play this one? Bishop e2 check. Magnus Carlsen said bishop e2 check. You only have one move that is reasonable. There's a bad one, there's a good one. So if they go bishop e7, which a lot of people will play, then there'll be rude awakening because knight g6 checkmate. and black loses. So Magnus Carlsen had this all planned out. And he knew that Levon Aronian had his second knight. Knight f6 check. So Magnus Carlsen had this all mapped out. And Levon Aronian had to know that he had to play knight f6. Bishop takes f6 was played, check, king h7, and now knight e6. So Magnus Carlsen at this point is playing for true results. And you're probably thinking, what? Really? How? Where? All the questions, basically the who, what, where, why, and how is going in your mind now. But Magnus Carlsen is so good, he knows, he answered all those things right now. He answered all the things right now. Bishop e6 was played, and this one, bishop e5, saying that, okay, Levon, take my bishop, and you let me queen, won't you? And Levon Aronian he knows better. Bishop e7 is better, basically more practical. Now, Magnus Carlsen concedes that, okay, we'll just take this off and trade this one into this endgame. So again, how do we go for two results? That's why we want to have the mindset change for you. This is how Magnus Carlsen was able to convert to change this one to two result games. No risk of losing at all. Basically, Magnus Carlsen crafts like a perfect picture, relies on doing knight 6, h4, knight g5, bishop e7, a5 to b4. Take the queenside pawns off the position and basically imagine this one simply. Imagine all these three pawns, b3, b4, a2, all the pawns are gone. Imagine those pawns are gone. How do we evaluate positions where we have knight and bishop versus rook on the same side of the board? Probably drawish, right? But there's no risk of losing. There's no risk of losing. We're playing for two results. If anybody's going to lose, it's going to be black. White has two pieces to play with, and black has one, a rook only. So, g5 was played, h4, trade the pawns off, and now king g7, saying that g6 rather. He wants to go king f5, trying to force the bishop and knight. Knight d4, saying that I want to build a wall against your king. Rook d3, and then knight c6. Rook d2, check, and then king e3. Taking a2. But again, Magnus Carlsen is very patient, methodical. He wants to make sure that the b pawn is always saved for later. He wants to make this guy the winner of the game. This is the key to victory, this pawn. So if this knight would take this one, then this pawn is goner. It's the goner, completely goner. This is basically really drawish because the pawns remaining are h pawns. That'll be not playable for a win. It's basically like two result games. It's more like on the side of like there's no way to mess up for black. It's really no results for black to lose the game, really. But he knows. Magnus Carlsen knows that the key to victory is to keep that pawn intact. So he played bishop e6. I want to take that one, maybe the bishop, and not lose the b pawn. So rook a1, king d4, rook g1, king c5. Possible bishop e7 to defend the h pawn, and basically you want to have this pawn to be, let's say, like a caravan going from b3 to b8. This is what Magnus Carlsen's picks is to play for two results. He has in mind, he crafts a picture to play for two results, and this is how we play for two results. Craft a picture in mind. How do we possibly gain a possible victory and minimize the results at the same time? So this is how he can play against the Super Grandmaster and have this play for two results mentality. Basically the three steps. Step 1, how to minimize risks of losing. Step number 2, how do we make a portrait to ideally have your pieces in a way that you can actually play pushing for a possible win, having your opponent make some, let's say, having some traps for your opponent to make and having yourself to win. And the third one is make sure that you don't rush things. You want to be patient and methodical. Basically, even though you have two results, you don't want to fumble the ball. The only way that you lose if you fumble the ball and you have the picture actually be a mess. Not a picture at all, it's a mess. That's why Magnus Carlsen just had all these three steps in the same tandem and he won the game against Aronian. So how did the game end here? King f5. Knight takes b4. Finally, take the pawn. Rook c1 check. King d4. Rook e1, knight c6. He wants to push the pawn, the caravan, like I said. Rook e4, king d5, the rook takes h4. So this pawn h5 is irrelevant. What is mattering is the b4 pawn, and is going to escape to, let's say, b8. So rook h1. Aronian knows that what is Magnus Carlsen coming up? He wants to have the b pawn score to a promotion. b5, rook b1, king knight d4 check, defend the pawn, and also checking the king. King d4, king c6, king c1, rook c1 rather, king d7, rook b1 again, king c7, h4, b6, king h3, b7, king g2, knight f5, and this is where after h3, knight h4, a Levant Iranian resigns here, and probably a lot of people are going to be screaming in the chat and screaming in the comment sections like, why did he resign? I would play this on and I'll be a draw. But just sacrifice the pawn for a piece, I'll be a draw. No, there's actually no practical way to draw this game. It's simply a loss, simply a win for white, and black's lost. Not losing, is lost, because Magnus Carlsen knows how to play the bishop knight checkmate. Who would think? He knows how to play the bishop knight checkmate, because if he goes king h1 or king g1, let's say h1, then this queen promotion, take this one, and this pawn will never promote, never will promote. It's impossible, impossible. So if they go h2, knight f3, simply take the pawn and do the bishop knight checkmate. He knows this one, and this is why Levant Iranian didn't want to waste the time. He knows that Magnus Carlsen knows how to do this checkmate, and this is why at this point he knows the writing on the wall, so saying that okay, after knight h4, he's done. So hopefully they enjoyed this video, and then see you in the next one. Hey, check this video out to make sure that you get more important information to bring your chess to the next level.